Hello and welcome back. This week, I am talking about the second module of our program here at Starfish Social Club. There are 4 modules in the program. 2 weeks ago, I talked about module 1. This week is module 2. And on my next 2 solo episodes, I will talk about modules 3 and 4 to give everybody an idea of what all goes on around here. Sometimes it can be kind of a lot to take in. It's 32 weeks long. So it's definitely a lot of information, a lot of things that we talk about and learn about and practice. So doing these episodes to give everybody just a better idea of what students learn through the program here at Starfish Social Club. Module 2 is called awareness. Module 1 was identity. It was all about deciding what we want our reputation to be and then learning how to create that reputation. Awareness is all about enhancing and improving our social awareness skills, our ability to notice things around us, our ability to listen to and pay attention to other people, figuring out what's going on, doing a little bit of analyzing, some inferencing, just becoming more socially aware. That is the theme of Module 2. It is 8 weeks long, just like all of our other modules, and every week has a certain theme. And all of our modules build on each other week by week. So the first week and the second week builds on the first week, third week builds on first and second week, etc. So all of our modules build on each other as they go. So let's get right into it. Week 1, we talk about the concept of detours. This week is all about things that are unexpected. And a big part of this is the concept that we tend to think of the word unexpected as being negative, unwanted, but really it's just things that we weren't planning on. And part of the lesson is about how a surprise birthday party is unexpected. Your mom making your favorite dinner is unexpected. Not everything that's unexpected is negative. We just tend to think of it that way when we hear that word. Unexpected just means we weren't planning for it. That's what we talk about this week, is just things coming up that we weren't planning on. And we talk about how this actually happens to us pretty much every day. Pretty much every day, things happen that we just weren't planning on. And so I have the students go through and talk about, most of the time they're little things, but what are things that happened today that you just didn't know were going to happen? This leads into a conversation about a concept called size of the problem, and how most of the things that we encounter that are unexpected are little. They're things that might be a little bit frustrating, a little bit annoying, but we can handle them. There's also medium problems. These take a little bit of time to solve. We may need some help solving medium problems, but we're able to usually get past it still fairly quickly. It's, we still might be frustrated, annoyed, upset, but we're usually able to solve it and move on. Big problems, these are things that affect a lot of people. They take some time to fix. People definitely need help with big problems. Big problems are actually pretty rare. So we talk about how these are things like natural disasters, accidents, things where people are getting hurt or worse. A lot of times when people teach this concept, they also teach size of the reaction. And the point is that the reaction size should match the size of the problem, and that there's kind of a general consensus on what size certain problems should be. The challenge with this is that we all perceive the world through our own filter, through our own lens. It's made up of our past experiences. It's made up of our, implicit biases. It's made up of our belief system. So we all filter the world differently. And so something happening to two different people may elicit very different responses from those two people because of how they perceive the world. Because of that, I don't spend a lot of time talking about size of the reaction because I don't believe there's such a thing as an overreaction. There's definitely big reactions. There's definitely unexpected reactions. There's reactions that scare other people. But we have those reactions for a reason. And just because most other people might not react that way does not mean that it's inappropriate or wrong for someone to react that way. We all have had different life experiences. We do talk about how our brains tend to perceive problems as bigger when we're upset or frustrated or annoyed. Our brains tend to get overwhelmed and think that problems are bigger in those situations than it thinks when we're calm, rested, in a good mood. So that is part of the lesson for this week as well, is that sometimes our brain just freaks out a bit and thinks that things are a big deal, whereas on another day, we might not think that at all. The point of this lesson is the concept of taking a detour. A detour is when you still end up at the same place, but you have to find a different way to get there. So we still want to end up by creating the reputation that we want for ourselves, but sometimes we say and do things that are not getting us there. We don't want to go off path. We don't want to try to get somewhere different. We still want to get where we're trying to go, but we need to figure out a different way to do it. So some of the things that we talk about when we're having a hard time regulating our emotions or following through with our plans is taking a detour could look like trying to give somebody feedback and solving a problem, asking for help, trying to change the situation, possibly removing ourselves from the situation if that's an option. And ultimately, sometimes we just have to accept the situation. We just have to acknowledge that it is what it is and accept it. And we also talk about how accepting the situation means doing so without complaining. So we talk about that as well. Week 2 of the awareness module is about inferencing. This basically means taking the information that you have and using it to try to figure out other things. In my opinion, one of the big concerns that people have about kiddos with social learning challenges is that they don't pick up on social clues or cues. They don't recognize them. And I have found, and I believe that that's not always what's happening. I find that my kids do recognize social clues and cues, but they don't know what to do with that information. So if I ask students, what are some signs that somebody's not interested in what you're talking about? Or what are some signs that you've said something that somebody else doesn't like, or that you're bothering somebody else? Most of the time, the kids are aware of that. They know what the clues and cues are. Where they get stuck sometimes is knowing what to do when that happens. And I think it's because when we make a plan to do something or to talk about something and it doesn't work out the way we expected it to, we don't always know what else to do. So I call this making a plan B. Like, this is what I thought was going to happen, and I don't know what else to do. And the story that I tell the kids during this lesson is several years ago at Starfish Social Club, when we were in person, we were starting class. And so I was bringing all the students in from the waiting room. And one of the kids had brought a little stuffed animal. And she ran up to me and she put it really close to my face. And she said, "Steph, look what I brought." It was too close to my face. And I had kind of an immediate reaction where I held my hands out and stepped back away from her. And I said, "That makes me uncomfortable that it's so close to my face." And so she stopped for a minute. And then she did it all over again. The same thing. She put it up in my face. "Steph, look what I brought. Isn't it cute?" So she noticed me backing away. She noticed I put my hand up. She heard what I said, but she didn't do anything differently. And I think it's because she didn't know what else to do. This was her plan, and it didn't go the way that she thought it would. And then she was just kind of stuck. She didn't know what else to do or what else to try. So this week we talk about how noticing involves, number one, paying attention, and number two, doing something with the information that you notice. This week, we also talk about the concept of mean teasing versus friendly teasing, which for a lot of students is a concept that they don't understand before we have this lesson. Maybe more predominantly so with kids who struggle with humor. This could be more of a challenge. Kids who are very black and white. So we talk about how, similar to the word unexpected, the word teasing almost always has a negative connotation. So part of the lesson this week is the difference between friendly teasing and mean teasing. And just to share the main difference, if you're not sure, the main difference is the relationship you have with this person. If you guys don't have a great relationship, or if you have no relationship, it's probably not friendly teasing. We don't tend to friendly tease people we don't know. We definitely don't friendly tease people we don't like. However, if this is a family member, someone you spend a lot of time with that you enjoy, a friend, a teacher, a classmate, someone that you have a good relationship with, it is almost always friendly teasing. That doesn't mean that we have to like it. Nicknames are a great example of friendly teasing. You don't have to like your nickname, but if the person calling you that name is someone that you get along with, that you know likes you, it is friendly teasing. We can give that person feedback. We can say, "Hey, can you please not call me that?" But it's really important for us to recognize the difference between friendly teasing and mean teasing, because most healthy relationships involve friendly teasing. Parents and kids, most parents friendly tease their kids. Siblings, most siblings friendly tease each other. Even romantic relationships, most partners friendly tease each other. So even if our kids choose not to participate in friendly teasing, it's really important that they understand the difference, because most likely they will be the recipient of friendly teasing. We also talk about how we can respond if it's not friendly teasing. One of the big important things here at Starfish is that the kids can make any choice that they want to. So I asked them, what are some different ways that you could respond if somebody is mean teasing you? And I allow every answer, because yes, you can hit somebody. You can call somebody a name. You can do anything you choose to. We just need to be aware that every choice we make has a consequence. And so that's a really helpful and important conversation. Is we can always make whatever choices we want to. We just have to understand the consequences that go along with those choices. And hopefully that will help us make choices that have consequences that we're more willing to deal with. Week 3 is about nonverbal communication. The big focus in week 3 is helping kids learn what to do with these social clues and cues that they're receiving. So we talk about what it looks like if we are having a conversation with somebody and we haven't given enough information. What does that look like? What might we see or hear? On the flip side, if we're having a conversation with somebody and we have been talking too much, maybe we've shared things that are a little too personal, or we've just taken too long when it's our turn. What might we see or hear in that situation? And then how do we take a detour? What do we do? How do we get this conversation back on track? We talk about the concept of social filter and social fake. We talk about noticing if somebody's not interested in what you're talking about and what you can do when that happens. I worked with a college student recently and he said, oh yeah, I totally know when somebody doesn't care what I'm talking about anymore. I just don't know how to save that conversation. And so that's part of what we talk about in this 3rd week is how do you save that conversation? It's actually pretty easy to do. A lot of the things that I teach the students are just one sentence, one phrase that you can say that can completely shift the conversation. So it's actually pretty easy to rescue a conversation like that once you know how to do it. We also talk about, paying attention to people's eyes. Eyes usually give us a good indication of what somebody's paying attention to. For example, if we don't know if somebody's talking to us or someone else, we can pay attention to where they're looking. So that's this week is paying attention to nonverbal communication that we may be getting. What does it mean? And what can we do when we notice that these things might be happening? Week 4 of our awareness module is about humor feedback. Humor feedback. And as we talked about in module 1, not all of our students have a desire to have a reputation for being funny, but this is, I think, a pretty important concept. So it's just recognizing what kind of response you're getting if you are trying to be funny, so we know where to go from there. Here's the thing about laughter. There are actually 4 reasons why someone may laugh. 4 reasons. Only one of them is because they are laughing with you. Okay, so obviously one is laughing with you, one is laughing at you. And I'm going to leave the other ones a mystery for the kiddos who are in the program. But that's really important to understand because most students, when they start the program, think that if somebody's laughing, it's because they think something's funny. And so if their goal is to have a reputation for being funny, they're going to keep doing that thing they were doing. So that's what this whole week 4 is about, is paying attention to the different reasons people may laugh and what our response should be based on the reason that person is laughing. So we talk about how to identify each reason and then what shift we might need to take based on why that person is laughing. We also talk about how not everybody likes humor. There are some people for whom humor is just not a thing for them. And so if we're trying to be funny, if we're trying to be silly, paying attention to who we're doing that with or who we're doing that around. Because there are some people for whom humor is not really a thing. And let me go back. I know I talked about, oh, actually, I'll do that. Skip that. Okay. That's the first 4 weeks of module 2. The last 4 weeks of module 2 go on a bit of a different path, and they all go together. Week 5 of module 2, we do show and tell. I have been doing this since 2020, and this is one of the students' favorite weeks, no matter how old they are, and no matter how many years they have been enrolled in this program. It is one of the favorite weeks. So basically, this week, every student gets to bring 3 things. Anything that's appropriate to share with the group. It can be a picture, it can be a stuffed animal, it can be their pet, trophies, souvenirs. We've had all kinds of stuff. And we go around the group, and everybody gets to go one object at a time and share what they want to share with the group. And then everybody who's listening gets to either ask a question about that object or make a comment about that object. And that's part of the lesson this week, is that we are paying attention, thinking of something to ask or to say about everything that everybody has brought. I am always really impressed with how much the students are engaged in what other people are sharing. As you can imagine, sometimes kids share things that none of the other kids know about. It might be something they've never heard of. But I'm always really impressed with how curious and interested the students are as a whole when we do these lessons. They really love to see what other kids are sharing and to learn more about it and ask questions and to have conversations about it. So by far, this is one of our favorite weeks. Week 6, we usually this week, this is the module that I teach October to December. And so usually this module, week 6 happens after we return from Thanksgiving. Obviously, you know, Thanksgiving changes a little bit. So, but usually this is when we come back. And so we've now had 2 weeks since we had show and tell. The first thing that we do in week 6 is we see what we can remember about the things that other students shared for show and tell. So this is what we call social memory. We see what we can remember about what everybody else shared. We also practice giving hints during this week. So if somebody doesn't remember something, I ask that student who shared it to give a hint. Not everybody knows how to give a hint. So some students, it takes some coaching. That a hint or a clue is giving away a piece of information, but not the whole thing. So some students, this is a learning process for that. We then work on finding things we have in common with other people in the group based on what we know about them. So not only do we have the show and tell experience, we have also now been in this group together. We're on week 6 in this group together. Not to mention, some of these students have been in the group together for years. But as a group, including new students who just joined, we are now on week 6 together. So we know some things about each other. This week, we focus on what I call body connections and brain connections. So body connection means we use our eyes and our ears to notice things we have in common with other people because we see it or we've heard it. So maybe during show and tell, somebody shared a game that you also play, right? You saw that and you heard it. Maybe you've seen that somebody wears a shirt from somewhere that you've been. So that's something that you've seen. Or you've heard somebody talk about their birthday, which is around the same time as your birthday. That's something you've heard. A brain connection requires inferencing. It requires us to think a little bit broader and make some broader connections bigger than what we see and what we hear. For example, if you notice that somebody shared a book about Harry Potter, maybe you don't care about Harry Potter, but you like to read. That's an example of a brain connection with something you guys have in common, is you guys both like to read. Maybe somebody showed their dog during show and tell, and you have a cat. So it's not the same thing, but what do you guys have in common? That you both have pets. Okay, so this week we spend time noticing things we have in common with people, even if it's not that obvious, even if it's things that we have to think a little bit about. And part of what we do during this week is we look at 2 students in the group at a time. And as a group, we see if we can think of things that they have in common, either because they shared them during show and tell, or we've just heard them talk about it. This week, we do the Venn diagram lesson. There is a video in the Facebook page about that I've tagged to our Facebook page, using Venn diagrams to help kids have conversations that everybody's interested in, not just one person. That's a really cool lesson and very, very helpful. Week 7, still on the concept of show and tell, what we have in common. Our goal for week 7 is to use the information we know about somebody to have conversations with them. In a social conversation with somebody that we know, ideally, we will have conversations with them about things we know about them. While it's always okay to start a conversation with, like, hey, how was your weekend? Hey, what'd you have for lunch today? Those are generic conversations that we could have with most people. You could even ask a stranger, hey, how was your weekend? You know, somebody that you maybe are standing in line behind at the store. I mean, you could say that to a stranger, because we know people, we want to have more personal conversations. So week 7, the students think about what they know about each other, and they use that to start a conversation with each other. Great context is thinking about the weekend. So either the weekend that just passed or the weekend that's coming up. And for example, if you know that this person likes to read, what could you ask them? Hey, did you read anything new over the weekend? All right. If you know that this person's really into movies, a question might be, are you going to go see anything cool this weekend? So it's taking what we know about somebody and using that to start a conversation instead of generic, random conversation starters. Even now that we're on Zoom, we have students all over the country. And so weather, right? You can talk about the weather, but you can do it more specifically because you know where different people live. For some of us, like me, it's snowing. And for some people, it doesn't snow where they live. So even things like that, when you know specific things about people, you can ask more specific social questions. And that's our goal, is to be more specific and less generic. All right, week 8, again, because this is October through December, week 8 is our last week before we go on break for the holidays. So here's what we do for week 8. We talk about the concept of getting gifts for people. Not everybody celebrates Christmas, and so this is not a Christmas lesson. We talk about all the different reasons you might give somebody a gift: a graduation, an accomplishment, a birthday. When you're an adult, baby showers, weddings, a new home. There's lots of reasons why you might get somebody a gift. So that's the first part of what we talk about in week 8. We then talk about how we're going to use our imaginations during this week, and we're going to pretend that we're going to get a gift for everybody in our group. We talk about some things that are not really gifts that kids get other kids, like electronics. We don't get other kids game systems, things that are expensive. We don't get other kids animals. We typically don't get other kids food. We typically don't get other kids clothing. The exceptions are things that we know they like if you know your friend's favorite flavor of chips, for example. Clothing, we typically don't do that unless it's for a specific reason, like a t-shirt from their favorite video game. So the goal for this week is to come up with gift ideas for every student in the group, and bonus points, which don't actually mean anything, but they're very motivating. Bonus points if you can combine 2 things that you know about somebody and come up with 1 gift idea. For example, if you know that somebody likes Legos and Batman Lego set, right? We have a student who usually wears different kind of crazy socks, and we know that he likes the Simpsons socks. So once you know things about somebody, it's much easier to think of gift ideas for them based on what you know about them. And our goal is to not be generic. Our goal is, and even we talk about gift cards, we only give somebody a gift card if we know that that's a place that they like and that that's a place where they spend money. If we don't know that, we do not want to get them a gift card there. And the example that I give is one year for Christmas, I think I got like $60 worth in Starbucks gift cards. I don't drink coffee. Like I don't go to Starbucks ever. So it's just, things like that, when we give somebody a gift, we want it to be specific to them. We do end this week with a lesson about how we handle it if and when somebody gives us something that we don't want, we don't like, we didn't ask for, we already have, whatever the case may be. Because that's always going to happen, even in my Starbucks gift card example. And so we respond to this with 2 words. And I asked the kids, hey, what do you guys think? How do you guys think we respond to this? And the answers range from saying, thank you, but I already have one, which we talk about how it's just not really necessary to say that, right? It just doesn't really benefit anybody to say something like that. Sometimes kids will say, thank you, I love it. And we'll talk about how we don't have to be dishonest. We don't have to say something that's not true, right? You don't have to tell somebody you love something if you don't. We then talk about how all we need to say is thank you. That's it. All we need to say is thank you. We don't have to ask them. Somebody said, will you please get me something else, right? We just say thank you. And then we can do what we choose to with that gift. We can return it. We can give it to someone else. We can do what we choose to. But somebody giving us something means they were thinking about us. They put time and effort and possibly money into thinking about us. And so we just say, thank you. Okay, that is module 2. And in a nutshell, that is what I teach during module 2. So on the next solo episode, I will talk about module 3, which is all about conversations. So I'll see you again next time. I am really glad you're here.